Now, there is an upgrade that you can do to the PlayStation 5 that I think is the most important thing that you can do to it, and it fixes probably the biggest problem that the PS5 has. What is that problem? It's the storage space. Now, when you first get your PlayStation 5, that isn't a thing you necessarily notice. You download your first couple of games and it's fine, and then you have a couple more and you're fine. Then you get to the point where your hard drive gets full and you want to download a game, but you have to offload some of the stuff you're not playing. And that balance gets harder the longer you have the PlayStation. For example, in my personal experience, I have the PlayStation VR 2, so I have some VR games on the PlayStation. I also have some flat screen games that I like playing, so things like God of War or Ghost of Tsushima. And then I have some other games thrown in there that I like to play with the kids. So there's some kiddie-friendly games, ones that my daughter wants to play. Astrobot, they like playing as well, so that's on there. Then I have FIFA on there that I can play if I just fancy a very quick game of FIFA. And if I have friends that come around and we want to play a multiplayer game, we have that. And as you can imagine, all of these games just don't fit on the PlayStation at the same time. So what tends to happen is that the sort of single-player focused games that I want to play, I have to sort of offload them and reload them up, and then if I want to switch between them, it's just too much of a faff, so I only ever end up playing one game at a time. Now, this is compounded when there are some games that are just massive. For example, Call of Duty, which is like 250 gigabytes or something like that. That takes up almost half of the available storage on the PlayStation, because even though it's got a terabyte hard drive on it, it's not really, because by the time you've got all the other software and bits and bobs on there, available storage is a lot less. If you want to be doing what I'm doing and you sometimes record some of your game footage, that's going to be taking up more. It's just a nightmare. Luckily, Sony did think about this. There is an option to be able to extend the storage. Now, this throws up two problems, because you could just plug in a hard drive like a SSD, like something like that. The problem is that as much as that might have a decent amount of space on it, this has got a terabyte on it, and it is an SSD. It's got pretty quick read speeds, but it's only reading about a gigabyte a second. Now, the PlayStation's internal hard drive is reading about 5,500 megabytes a second, which is obviously almost 5 times as much as that. So essentially what you need is a hard drive that is 5 times faster than one of these, and it's just not going to happen with an external drive. Now, if you do a little bit of meddling inside the PlayStation 5, there is a slot to add an M2 drive. Now, there are a few options you can get. You can get ones that are particularly licensed by PlayStation and Sony. There are also ones that aren't licensed by them, but are made by particular brands. The one I've got here is one by Western Digital, the WD Black. Now, the main things you really want to focus on with this is that, one, it has a heatsink, which means it's going to be keeping cooler, which means it's going to be much more efficient. And then the other thing is that you want the read and write speeds to be as quick as possible. So this has a reading speed of up to 7,300 megabytes a second. Now, that is going to be actually more than the internal hard drive of the PlayStation 5. So not only will this increase the storage of your PlayStation 5, but actually the reading speeds of games stored on this will be faster than the ones stored on the internal hard drive. So how do you do it? Let's take a look. So the first thing you're going to need to do is actually switch everything off, turn off the PlayStation properly and fully, unplug everything, and take off the stand. Once you have the PlayStation naked as the day it was born, you can now take off the covers. What you'll need to do is have it on the side with the disc drive facing up. If you don't have a disc drive for PS5, it is essentially, when you're looking at it stood up, the right hand side of it, the side that doesn't have the PlayStation 5 icon. If you then slightly lift the top of the cover, you can then push it down and it will pop off, and you shouldn't do any damage. And there's been people who are just doing it ridiculously too hard. It requires a bit of force, but you shouldn't be breaking anything. Once you've slid this off, you will see there's this little place down at the bottom, a little cover for you to put in your extra hard drive. What you need to do is unscrew that little screw that's in there, take the hard drive cover off, and then you can place in your new hard drive. And there is a screw and a little washer that goes underneath the new hard drive, and you basically stick that in there, screw it in, and you're good to go. You will need to obviously cover that back up, put the screw back on, and put the covers back on. Once you've done that, it is installed. There's not really much more you need to do except switch the PlayStation 5 on. Once you've switched it on, it should automatically pop up with the change that you've made, telling you that you've installed a new hard drive and you need to format it. You can then let it run through the formatting of this hard drive, and then it will be ready to go. Now, you can change your default location to always install games onto that hard drive, or alternatively, you can just wait until you're installing a game and it will tell you if your current hard drive is full, do you want to use one of the other options, and you can do that too. Now, I've gone for 1 terabyte, and I honestly think that will be enough for myself. If you're the type of person who goes between loads of games, you might want to go for sort of slightly bigger storage. Personally, for me, 1 terabyte is going to be more than enough. I probably only need an extra couple of games, but even with Call of Duty and a few extra games on there, I've over doubled my storage space. So I have tons of space, and I have more than I know what to do with now, and that is exactly what I wanted. But guys, I'd love to know whether this is an upgrade that you've done, whether you've used a different hard drive to me. If you have any recommendations, stick them down and below. I've put the links to the one that I used in the video down there too. But that, everyone, is all from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Woo!